I think we'll wait a minute here and give people a little time to come in if that's needed. Okay, we'll just call this live. Hi, everybody, and welcome to My Food, My Story, number 5, which is really about my journey from internal confusion and chaos into peace with a capital P, which is the kind that baffles the world. And this topic here is maybe, I believe it is, but it may be the most profound of all the topics that we've had so far that I've covered. Oh, by the way, I'm Sandra Allen Lovelace. I am a coach and a speaker and an author. Most credibility-wise, I guess, is I'm a mature woman and I have been on this journey. So also, I want to introduce my friend to you. This is Michelle, and I invited her in because I wanted us to feel a little more like a conversation, not just blah, blah, blah from me. And I've known Michelle for a while, and I thought she'd be a great fit, which is turning out to be that way. Why don't you say hi, Michelle?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Sandra. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, you're really welcome. One of the great things is that Michelle and I have found, as we've been working on this, that there are a lot of similarities in our lives. Michelle, could you just share a couple, maybe from our lives or for the journey?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed recently, as we both work on ourselves and healing from trauma, one of the things that I think that we are both experiencing right now is the capacity to give yourself a lot of grace and compassion.
Yes.
It sounds easy, but in practice, it doesn't come as easy as it sounds. So, but that's something that we've been working on together and individually. So that's been, I think, something that we're dealing with now that's helping us on the journey.
I agree. I have found that really helpful. And it's really good to have somebody else that you can bounce these ideas off of too.
Right.
And also, one of the things that we have found in terms of similarities in our lives is that my air conditioner went out, and so did Michelle's last week. Mine has been a long-term problem that had to be finally corrected. Fortunately, she has a handyman husband, and it didn't take too long for her to get hers straightened out. But that was really funny, wasn't it?
Yes. You had just told me about yours, and we were celebrating that it was fixed, and then ours went out, and I sent you a picture, like, and here's a current picture of our air conditioning showing that it's out. So thankfully he fixed it that night and it was back on.
Yeah. So be prepared for all kinds of things to go on in your life when you're on this journey. But today, I really want to talk about prepping. We've come to that topic in the series through different kinds of things about my food, which God has woven in so carefully into my story. Now, as I said, probably it's the greatest impact, but let me just review the tip that I'm going to share is probably the greatest of them. But let me just share for a minute what some of the other ones were, if you go back and remember that you can choose to be whole, secure, and free. We don't have to live in the midst of the pressure of the world. Also, it's very important to know yourself. That was another tip. And we went into that one. I think that might have been number 3. And then practice the pause, that it's important when we get into situations to check what's going on inside us, and pause and do that before we go forward. Now, we started talking about meals because number 1 was the beginning, because I was suddenly aware of how carefully I was preparing a meal for a guest when I was eating off small paper plates and using a little plastic cup for myself. That's where we started. And then after that, we talked about shopping, talked about different styles of shopping, and we talked about planning, which included different seasons in our life about how we plan. And then last time I talked about setting the table. We weren't just setting the table, we're actually setting a scene for our meal, and really it flows into life in general. So now we have everything in place. The table is set and it's time to get ready. The meal is planned, so let's go. Let's prep. Well, let me tell you where I was when I had to prepare meals in this last little season. It was different before. I had my family to prepare for and my children's likes and dislikes, and hoping to be able to widen their experience with food so they would be aware and to know something about nutrition, and I mean, on and on and on. There was so much going on. And now that I'm by myself, it's changed dramatically, and I've got realized I'm kind of in a complaining season of life. I mean, after all, I only am fixing for one person, so if you make too much, it's going to go bad, or I'm going to have to eat it for a week, or is it just me? It's really tricky to do this kind of thing. For example, for me, meal preparation, I have a history that's not very positive about that. I wasn't really trained at all, taught at all. And when I did try some early efforts, I was ridiculed. At least that's how I received it. And so it's not one of my favorite things to begin with. Plus, it's required. I mean, I don't want to do what I have to do, and I have to do it 3 times a day. It's never going to go away. This is just not good. Also, I didn't have any help living by myself. It's like bounce ideas off. Oh, would you like to have this for dinner? Or what do you think about this for tomorrow? Or anything. Nope, it wasn't there. And there was no feedback. Gee, you put a lot of work into that meal. I loved that. Can we do that again? Or anything. It was just not a great environment to draw me in for a pleasant experience. Let's put it that way. And I pretty much didn't have very many ideas. It was the same meals over and over. and I ate alone. So I think I mentioned this before, that I would forget to eat. And the trauma in my life actually had wiped away my hunger reaction for my body. I had ignored it so much. And so oftentimes I'd eat maybe 2 meals a day, but only because I was making a conscious effort to try to eat. So pretty much I had a really bad attitude about meal prep, which, as you can tell by that list, probably connected to the other parts as well. But God had been working on the other parts. And so now we're up to meal prep. And so remember how he's been working. When I had the attitude of, I'm supposed to have 2 or 3 portions of fruit every day. This is ridiculous. As I'm preparing it. Well, now, Sandra, if you just called this dessert, how would that change your attitude? I giggled about that. Okay, fine. So now I always prepare my dessert first. I make myself a little serving of fruit beforehand. So this shows about how God can work in our hearts. I also had, at that time, complaining about the work to do, the task of meal prep, but also I had poured myself into, I had a big project in front of me, and I was working on it all those hours. I think I mentioned that earlier too. And so when it was time, I better go eat something. It's too late for lunch. It's kind of early for dinner. I'll just do it once. And I would go off, but the project was still on my mind. And on top of that was how much progress I was making or wasn't making, and what's the next thing. And I did this yesterday and that didn't go well. Plus I was on my own and I need to take care of the internet. I need to take care of paying the rent. I need to take care of my car. It's time for an inspection, or I need new tires, or you just name it. All of these things, because I would pause from the big project that was consuming me. If you've ever had that happen in your life. And so Um, that's mealtime. That's what it was. Mealtime, my mind was racing. I had to get back to the job that I needed to finish, which I never finished, by the way. What else should I be doing outside of the project? Everything is on me. There's no breaks. There's no relaxation, so on, so on. So meal times were actually nothing but a chore for me, an unpleasant chore, a tricky chore. It was like putting myself in a pressure cooker to pause and walk into that kitchen and say, now, what am I going to have for lunch? Well, I'll call it dinner. It was awful. It was really, really awful. Now, that extended for a long, long time. But I wonder, Michelle, have you ever found yourself in that kind of an experience?
Yes. The first thing, the first thing that resonated was how your hunger pains dissipated. And I think my full meter dissipates. So there's sometimes like where I stop eating just because I stop eating, but I don't necessarily feel full. Like I don't have that awareness sometimes. And then the other part is just the not being present in that moment. Like you've got all this stuff running in your head or thinking about what's coming next or what, brain's going 100 miles an hour. And in the meantime, you're just doing what you're doing, but you're not really engaging with the moment or being present. So
right.
Really relatable.
Thank you for sharing that. In case you all might be wondering, no, Michelle only knows what you know. She knows the title, but she doesn't know where I'm going. And it's a great encouragement to me to hear you say that I'm not the only one. So thanks for doing that. I didn't think I was, but it's always nice to have you confirm that. So besides having all these things on my mind, and the extended time period that it was going on my own, after some time, that pace began to take toll. And the high-speed merry-go-round, I couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't clear my vision. It was really not good. That was going on 6 days a week. And sometimes I cheated a little bit on Sunday afternoons. And so I don't remember the date, but I remember the day, it was playing on me. Sandra, are you ever going to reach the end? Are you? And the end moves further and further away. And I thought, you know what? I need to do something that breaks away, that I get a rest, a relaxation thing. What can I do for entertainment? Well, I had been so busy. I didn't really have friends or anybody to call or that might call me or anything. I think I'm going to go to a movie. And that is not anything I ever did long term. In my past, it was not something every month I go to a movie or anything. It had always been very, very rare. So that was a really special occasion. And I went to a movie. That was a big deal. And then that was probably 5 years ago. I'm thinking, just to give this is not an overnight process. So then I mentioned this earlier in one of the other videos. Last year in May, so it's over a year ago, God called me to step back. And I didn't have any idea what that meant. But as slowly he took this away, and then he took this away, and then he took the other thing away. And it wasn't that there was nothing left, but there was very minimal left. And it gave me time away. It took the pressure off when I would go to make a meal. It gave me time to actually prepare, to think, oh yes, I'll have 2 vegetables with this, or that I will have vegetables at all, actually. I fell back into the meat every meal, a kind of an old habit, and potatoes and maybe a vegetable. And instead I'll have 2 vegetables because I really don't want potatoes in there or whatever. I began to think about what I was preparing. It was the oddest thing, I have to tell you. And it was a big surprise that I wasn't fighting against the task, because there wasn't all this other pressure, and it was God drawing me in, actually. And so also, I was still functioning begrudgingly, but I realized health issues started to come up, and I went and saw a naturopath about trying to figure out what my body liked in terms of food. I never paid attention to that before. It turns out my body doesn't like peanuts. It doesn't like dairy. There's a number of things. And as I was finding this out, I said, I just don't know what to do, because I was prepping. If I want to have sweet potatoes, my favorite, I'll cut the sweet potato in half and I'll just cook my own portion. And then I'm doing that every single day. And there's the required coming up, and there's the routine coming up to a degree I didn't like, etc. And the naturopath said to me, well, what she does is she roasts her vegetables, and she does a whole bunch of them. She does it on Sunday afternoons, and then she has vegetables all week. I thought that sounded really good. And so I started to do that, and I shifted over to more of vegetables, and that was really fun. Also, once a week, fed my a mess only once a week to clean that mess up. And then I can put the vegetables in glass containers and pull things out. And I began to focus on what I was doing in the kitchen. Okay, so maybe I'm thinking ahead a little bit. I'm just thinking, I've said this before, I'm a lazy cook. That's okay. So it was new and it was fresh, and I could do it for a week. And God was taking me into the place where it would be me, an experience for me that would speak to me. The focus started me thinking on the idea that maybe, just maybe, multitasking is not really the big benefit that I thought it was all along. That if I could plan this in my head while I'm doing this other thing and going about that and figuring out how to fix something that happened in the past and all of that while I'm trying to do this thing in front of me, maybe that's not really the best way to live. And at the same time, he was drawing me in with the very skills that I had learned in all the confusion, in all the demanding, in basically a lifetime of overwhelm. And so I've showed you this before, but the smarts and I've talked about this, the smarts and the strength and the adaptability that God developed while I was living in this move from survival, while I was living in survival, all those skills developing. And then stress, normal stress, yes, because I could recover from the hits that I was taking. And then actually being able to come into peace, where I would be approaching this task, just looking at this one task instead of all the other things in my life. The PTSS that I've mentioned, post-traumatic survival skills, were beginning to take hold and have a place to express them in food prep, like meal preparations. And it was the most, let me see if I can use this as a couple of illustrations. Here's a perfect case in point. This is a steamer. Some people haven't seen it. I discovered, somebody asked me about that. What are you talking about on Facebook? And I explained it. It's a little metal thing. You put water in the bottom of a saucepan, and you put this in and turn it on so the water boils, and whatever vegetables you want, you can put in here. It's probably about like this. And as the water boils, it steams the vegetables. Now, I did that because less mess. No matter how well, I have left it too long a couple of times and scorched the bottom of the pan. The vegetables taste a little bit like barbecue, but they were good. Probably not as nutritious, but people would say, oh, you steam your vegetables, that's really healthy. Well, I was doing it to prevent the mess of having to scrub the saucepan every day. So not only that, but after I thought about it a little bit, and this took months, I thought, if I steam the whole sweet potato, I could save half of it. Or if maybe I could steam 2, however much will fit in there, and save those, and I don't have to cook them every day. Oh, and I could put sweet potatoes in the bottom, and I could put Brussels sprouts on the top. I could mix, same pan, no mess. Aha. again, there are those skills God built me, built all of us with basic sense of, look at the world and figure out what's going on. That's how we survive. And the strength to carry on and use those skills and move forward, and the adaptability when things change. And here I was changing from an active family of 4 and a busy life, and now down to just me. Yeah, adaptability was working really well. So here's another one. I got healthy, right? Here's another one. This one's embarrassing, but I'm sharing it anyway. This is a grater. And if you haven't used it because you have one of these fancy Cuisinart things, let me just tell you, I put a little plate underneath and I grate cheese on there. This is number 4 in a series because the first one, I got it and my cheese was in the freezer. I needed cheese grated. I took the cheese out of the fridge, not the freezer, sorry, the fridge. I took it out of the fridge, cut the piece I wanted to, and I would start grating. Well, it was really hard. And it was the rind of the cheese, the first where I started. And so I was pushing the cheese on there, and it broke the grater. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous, this cheap thing. I did that till wouldn't work at all anymore. And I took it back to the store. I said, look at this. And I got another one. They gave me another one. 3 times. That happened 3 times until God intervened. And this really is a God story. He just comes in and blesses us in so many funny ways. I was going to say crazy, but it's not crazy. They're fun. This one day I took the cheese out. I said, okay, I want to grate this. And this was my new one. So I wanted to be careful with it. I was trying to be careful. Like, Sandra, what are you doing? These cheap things, you want it to last. But I got distracted by something else. A little time went by. I came back and the cheese had time to get to room temperature. And so I started grating and I went, oh, this is much easier to grate. This is what happens when you have nobody to teach you. So that, oh, God will step in anyway. So that's grating the cheese. Oh, I turned it over on the side where the rind was, and I did grating that. Oh, this is easy too. Bingo. Sandra, from now on, it's not the grater. You are pressing down to get this done when all you had to do was just be patient and wait for it to come to room temperature. Just need to think ahead. That's not the same as multitasking, because this is all meal prep. This is what I'm doing when I'm in the kitchen these days. But I have to tell you that God is so gracious. He's so gracious. He slows us down. He brought me into a safe place, slowed me down, drew me in. So a safe place so I could be calm and look at these things from a different perspective of all the confusion and chaos, and drew me in really close, granted me peace in his presence. Even in the midst of all this global trauma, that's overwhelm everywhere around the world, God has been doing all of this. And it's blossoming my meal prep in so many ways. But more than that, from the way I shop and the way I plan and the way I set the table is all dramatically different. Other people might not notice, or maybe you notice with your eyes, but really and truly, it's dramatically different on the inside. And that is blossoming all over the place in my mind, in my body, and my spirit. I have art in my life again. And health is now something that I'm pursuing, not just sort of bypassing because it's a bother. Relationships are more varied. Everybody doesn't have to fit into my little mold of what I think that means, because everybody has wonderful things to share. Relaxation is part of my life these days. There's a unity across my whole, I just feel really emotional. There's a unity across my whole life because of all of this. And the reality is, this is the other piece God has been showing me. It really is the oxygen mask. It's the oxygen mask idea. when you're on the plane, and it's scary because cabin temperature, or not just the temperature, but the air pressure is lowering. It's something really scary could easily happen. You grab the oxygen mask and put it on yourself so that you can breathe, so that you can be calm and be able to reach around and help other people. You can figure out what's going on with them and offer proper kind of support out of that peace that we have. And so let me just say that brings me right to the spot where I want to tell you what the tip is for today. That is, let multitasking go. Let multitasking go and settle into the present, just what's right here, not to the total exclusion forever of everything else, the way I did with my project 5 years ago, but just, this is the task God has given me. It's right here in front of me, and I'm focusing on this. I'm in the present. I'm in the present, which leads me into the present. So the capital P, much closer, in peace, in calm, and all the things that are on this chart about being in peace, right? Calm and curious, confident and courageous, creative and connected, and clarity and compassion are now part of my life. And it's not only for me, it's also because it's flowing out to other people around me. That's, at least that's my sense. And I just want to end with a couple of scripture verses, because God has brought that in the other times, and the ones today are really interesting to me. I want to say them correctly. So here we go. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for men, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. It's Colossians 3:22 and 24. That was the NIV version, but it really, we don't have to wait for heaven for the reward. I can give testimony to that. But also there's another verse that came to mind while I was working on this, and that is from Matthew chapter 22. And it's one of the scene where one of the experts of the law wanted to test Jesus with this particular question. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, which actually comes from Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verse 5. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. And that comes from Leviticus 19:18. And Jesus goes on to say, all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. That's from Matthew 22, verses 36 to 40. And it just bespeaks of the importance of loving your neighbor as yourself. We're trying to care for people at arm's length because we don't even really know what's going on in here, which I have done pretty much most of my life. And yet, once we come in touch with our own authenticity, when we really know our own design and our own purpose, the difference is wonderful. It is really God's love, because we're experiencing it more fully, more authentically. We're able to share that with other people. That's the oxygen mask idea. But yes, let's all let go of multitasking and live in the present so we can be in his presence. We just want to function I guess we could say, with an audience of one. I've heard that phrase before. So that's what I have for today. What do you think, Michelle?
I love the fact that you said, let go of multitasking, because I have noticed for me too, that's a comfortable place for me to be, to multitask. But I think it's the busyness that keeps us from, like, it's how we survived, and it's how our brains are wired. And now I use it to think about it like I have too many tabs open in my brain right now, like on your computer, if you have too many tabs open. And so I will notice it now and say, I need to close some tabs. I have too many things that are open right now, and take that minute to pause and then do the one thing, just the one thing. The rest will be there. You can do that next. So yes, totally relatable and great stuff. Great wisdom. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thanks for sharing the illustration of the tabs. I have that too. I don't want to tell you the number I've found on my computer open, but it's not a competition. So it's exciting, and I'm really thrilled at this series because it's brought me so far in understanding. Oh, I didn't share that thing. I guess I'll share that next time. It's a very deep piece. So next week, what I'm going to share about this final topic is enjoying. I'm going to pull all the various topics together and just come up with some points that I've already been gathering about what to enjoy in this journey from overwhelm into peace. There's so much more. Believe it or not, there's so much more. Thanks for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.